Today I have a very special video for you guys, as this is a monumental milestone, as it is Coaster Spotlight 1000. Holy good googly moogly, we've done 1,000 episodes. And it just so happens to be exactly video number 3000 overall on this channel. It also is exactly the 5-year anniversary date of Planet Coaster, as November 17th, 2016, Planet Coaster was born. To top it off, it's also my channel's 5th anniversary on YouTube. The stars couldn't have aligned more perfectly on these numbers. You can't write this stuff, you guys. Wow. So what I have in store for you guys today is 100 of the best coasters over 5 years and 1,000 spotlight episodes. Yes, that's right. I went through every single coaster spotlight on the channel, picked out as many of my favorites as possible, then narrowed it down to exactly 100. So just remember, these are my personal, most memorable creations for my personal reasons. Also, these do not include any parks, rides, and exclude most of the contests, since they were never included in the Coaster Spotlight series, but I still had to bring back a handful because they were coasters after all. So if you're thinking of a very memorable creation, it could have been a ride or a park, which are excluded from this series. Keep that in mind. So if your name didn't make this list, do not feel bad, because you are still included in the 1,000 episode journey to get to this point. So you are all Hall of Famers in my eyes. So the way we're going to be doing this is I will leave a number at the top of the screen, which will mark the episode that we're on, and we're going to go in order from oldest to latest. This is not a ranked from 100 to 1 top coasters. It's in the order of which the series started. The intros will be shortened down versions of the old original intros, just the name and the creation, so we can hear a little bit of young Johnny cringe. I will then clip in a few second voiceover afterwards, letting you know why I picked this for the top 100. So let's delay no further and get right on into it. Nuclear Inferno, created by Mick Dread. Episode number 1, where it all began with Mick Dread's Nuclear Inferno. This was the craziest thing I saw in the workshop, and the funny thing about that is I was wanting to do spotlights on people's creations, so I went to the workshop. I grabbed one coaster, one ride, and one park, and I did one of each without their permission from the workshop page. And in these 3 videos, I put a link to my email and said, if you want to get featured, email me. After episode 1 of each, I never went back to the workshop ever again. Every single submission up until this point was sent in, but started via email. I absolutely love this thing. At Return to Zero by Foo Films. This is the first time I saw something that was what I thought wasn't possible. I thought this person was using a supercomputer or some sort of cheat to get this much stuff in there. I actually couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I didn't quite understand what was going on. And this was the first kind of computer melter that I ever saw. And this was back on my old Radeon R9 290 card, which could not run this thing at all. Oh my god! Oh, the fire! It is Arcadia Rising, Land of Legends by Brian Hopkins. The first time we ever saw an exploration coaster, and Galcian BTH's first ever submission. And I remember that email. They came in through an email, no submission form, and Brian Hopkins sent me an email, and I thought, oh, this looks interesting. And then my mind was blown. And that actually set the inspiration for the upcoming exploration coaster contests, which was one of the first coaster contests. This has got to be one of my favorite coasters, guys. This is so amazing. Foxy's Racing Track by Riddler Revenge 75. This is Riddler's second submission ever. He was actually episode number 2 with the Tesla coaster, but I actually wanted to show this instead because I had to narrow things down. But this is the first time we saw a Mobius synchronized coaster, and back then in Planet Coaster you could not dual synchronize coasters. This was the only way. And I just remember thinking, this is incredible, and eventually it inspired me to make my own Mobius coaster, and we started this whole fad. Looking at the Cube of Illusion by Pixelated. Pixelated's first ever creation, and it went viral with over 250,000 views. One of the most popular videos on this channel to date, and it had that thumbnail of the spiraling Cube of Illusion, and everyone was drawn to it. And from there, Pixelated became a legend of this community. He was so inspired by all the views on his video that he just went on a rampage. Or Upside Down. Wow. Okay. This is really weird. It's Firewatch the Ride, and there's 2 videos for this. Firewatch was the first display of insane triggered events in Planet Coaster with over 1,300 triggers. The fire, the water, everything was custom trigger made, and we didn't know that this was possible at the time. We had very few people play around with triggered events on coasters up until this point, and Firewatch was the first one to kind of lead the way on triggered events. Wow, look at the smoke. This is Limbo the Ride, created by Pixelated. Pixelated returned after the Cube of Illusion to create Limbo, using only light and dark, white and black, to showcase doing something completely out of the box and original based off of the game Limbo, and an absolutely magical display of illusions. Looking at Heart of Darkness, Mine Train by Zephor. Zephor's first ever submission for Coaster Spotlight. He was actually one of the very first ride spotlights on this channel, but I just had to include the Heart of Darkness because Zephor is an absolute legend. He eventually became a moderator, and he helps out with all the contests, all the submission forms. He runs the Discord. He's changed everything on the Discord, and it goes all the way back to episode 41 and even episode 2 of Ride Spotlight. Zephor has been here from the beginning, and now he's running the show more so than me. So everybody give it up for Zephor, an absolute legend. And this is where it began for him in Coaster Spotlight. Is Dolores Hybrid Rmc, created by Galcian BTH. Galcian also inspired by all the views on his Arcadia Rising. He came back with vengeance and doing the Westworld at a time when the Westworld TV series was on fire. He decided to make a coaster based off of this. And it is also a moment on the channel where I started experimenting using a webcam for my spotlights. And that didn't last very long because you guys said my face was distracting. At the Wendell wooden coaster created by Lauren. This is the very first ever submission from Jubilante/Lauren, who soon became very dear friends of mine, and she actually helped out with the very first submission form, and she helped me run the Discord at that point. She was the first Zephor of kinds, and she helped organize the Discord. She helped with the submission forms. At this point, I stopped taking emails. But for the first 100+ submissions between coasters and parks, I was taking them all through emails, and it was getting very disorganized. So big shout out to Lauren, who came in and helped me get organized with spotlight submissions. And Wendell was her very first creation. Looking at Twisted Mountain high-speed inverted coaster, created by Tommy T067. Tommy T's very first ever creation. He was so unimpressed with his own creation, partially from some of the feedback that I gave him. He deleted it off his workshop and went on a creation rampage that never ended to this day. And I have never given Tommy any feedback since that creation. Looking at Cosmic Cow Raceway, created by Lauren.
Heyo.
Heyo. So the Cosmic Cow Raceway, created by Lauren, was inspired by my Chief Beef Raceway, which I'm not showing here because I don't want to include myself in this top 100, but I definitely wanted to include this because they were a pair. It was Chief Beef and Cosmic Cow, two dueling raceways based off the Mobius coaster, which was also based off episode 8, Foxy's Racing Track by Riddler Revenge. And it went on to create a giant Mobius racing coaster fad, and we probably saw one of almost every theme after that moment. And it all started with Riddler Revenge, Lauren, and myself with these 3 Mobius coasters. And to this day, I still want to see more. I love them. Looking at Dread, a horror coaster created by Pixelated, first ever true dark ride experience in Planet Coaster. And I did use the face cam for this one. I wanted people to see my reaction, and it was kind of like a reaction dark ride coaster, and probably the one and only time that I ever did this. It was really the first ever coaster dark ride that we've seen on the channel, a very memorable creation. We're going to be looking at Gateway's Triple Battle Coaster by Riddler Revenge 75. Riddler came back to show us how it's done after he saw the 2 Mobius dueling coasters, and he came with the triple Mobius dueling coaster, the first ever created, and I want to say maybe one of the only ever created, with the gigantic triple Mobius Giga Coaster. Today I have a very special guest joined with me.
Heyo.
Joined with young Jamie. Young Jamie is, what, 12 years old?
13.
13.
Yep.
Jamie's first ever submission, and based off the fad that was started from all the Mobius racing coasters. And we even had him on the episode as a special guest. Young Jamie, what a creator, and he was a big part of the early stages in this community. A very active young community member, and got to give a shout out to Jamie here. We're looking at Drykini Achterbach, butchered it, created by Borna Valesh. An amazing dueling coaster, a Mobius at that, because they still didn't have dueling at this point, but gigantic wooden coasters. I think it was wooden coasters, either that or RMC. But it was the first submission ever from Born Valesh. I don't know if you guys remember him, but he was also a very active community member in the very early stages. Gave me a lot of advice on YouTube and just helped me out in that sort of way. Shout out to Born Valesh. Where are you at? How you doing these days, buddy? Looking at 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea Ride by Bampilto 1X. Brad Hamilton's first ever submission. He went by the name of B. Hamilto 1X back then, and this is what started a trend in his movie coaster experience creations with 20 Leagues Under the Sea. And he went on to make just about every movie out there, and he was one of the biggest inspirations for the movie coaster contests that came way later. We're looking at the Walking Dead park, created by Extraordinaire, and in this episode, he's going to be my special guest.
Hello.
Yeah, I think I interrupted you. Say hello again.
Hello again.
So Extraordinaire's first ever coaster spotlight submission, and at the time, Walking Dead was huge on HBO or whatever it was. And this was just a truly memorable creation. I remember having him on as a guest for that. And back then, we did have lots of guests on. It was almost every other episode we had a guest. Maybe that's something we should bring back for 2022. But yes, Extraordinaire was an absolutely extraordinary creator, and The Walking Dead was no exception. Going to be Terra Rising, created by fan favorite Galcian BTH. Episode 100, and who else would it be other than Galcian, was the first legend to be represented from his numerous memorable creations in the first 100 spotlights. I didn't show off all his creations, but up until this point, I think he was featured 3 or 4 times on the channel in the first 100, so it only made sense for him to mark the giant milestone of 100 episodes with Terra Rising from Final Fantasy VI. Episode The Tron Ride Experience, created by Tommy T. Tommy T came back for vengeance with his massive creation in Tron. I think he had featured a couple other times, but yeah, he went on a rampage to create some of the best storytelling, action, exploration coasters, the whole mix of them. And Tron was the one that really solidified him as one of the most legendary creators at the time.
At Elemental Fury, the 4 chambers created by Combat Wombat.
Speaking of legendary creations and creators, Combat Wombat's first appearance with the epic 9-kilometer coaster. I think this might have been the longest coaster we had ever seen at the time of this channel. 9 kilometers is quite outstanding, and Combat Wombat was quickly known for his exploration and madness coasters, and he quickly rose to the top, and it all started here.
The Tron Legacy Ride, created by B. Hamilton 1X.
Brad Hamilton coming out to challenge Tommy T's Tron coaster with a Tron coaster of his own, based off of Tron Legacy, which offered a completely different experience, as Tron from Tommy was the original and Brad did the Legacy, which is the sequel. And I don't even know if this was intentional, but they were almost within a week of each other. Really cool.
Oh, Jack and the Beanstalk, created by Whitesider.
Whitesider's first ever coaster submission, and he has gone on to be one of the most legendary creators in this community, and he's been around all the way since episode 154. Wow. Shout out to Whitesider.
The 1% Luxury Park, created by Fricker.
Fricker's first ever submission, and I gotta tell you, this batch, the 1% Luxury Park, I remember the coaster, the parks at the time, what I was doing, I had this kind of like a tropical vibe going on, and I was doing a lot of island adventure stuff, and I can remember the time so clearly when I was doing all these recordings, and I remember really enjoying the 1% Luxury Park, but it was actually a coaster, and this was one of the earliest creations where it's a whole little mini park dedicated to one little coaster, and you know, Fricker was one of the first to do that, so shout out to Fricker.
Looking at Glacier Valley Twist dueling spinning coasters, created by Zephor.
Zephor, one of many creations from Zephor. I couldn't pick them all, but he's showing us how to bend the limits of dueling coasters with the no collision feature that was added in, and he completely hid the track underneath the coaster, making these spinning coasters look like they were skating around. And I remember thinking, wow, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen at that time. Galcian back on a roll. He returns with one of the most epic sci-fi creations ever made, which, fun fact, was actually inspired by episode 3 that we showed off, Return to Zero.
Looking at Pegasus and Bellerophon dual single track coaster, created by Fricker.
This video went kind of viral with over 200,000 views because of his ingenuity and the creation shown in the thumbnail of one coaster on top and an inverted coaster underneath. It was the first ever that somebody combined 2 tracks together and they followed each other, but one was on top and one was suspended below. And yeah, this was just mind-blowing at the time, and it's no wonder it went semi-viral.
Looking at Superman's Fortress of Solitude, created by Web Searcher.
This is Web Searcher's very first coaster submission, and I want to say one of his only coaster submissions. He wasn't that big into Coaster Spotlight, but it does go to show that Web Searcher has been around since the very beginning, and he too is a moderator in the community, the Discord community, even to this day. Shout out to Web Searcher, we love you, buddy.
Looking at Pump Jack, created by Dr. Fugo.
Dr. Fugo, he was a early creator on the show too, and Pump Jack was just absolutely amazing. I loved everything about it. There's just this hot steel and fire and craziness to it, and I just remember loving that episode. And shout out to Dr. Fugo, one of the earlier members in this community. So I'm going to go over a few of the Exploration Coaster Contest winners here, starting with Chance, very first submission ever, and she went on to win just about everything after that. I think to this day, she is the #1 ranking contest winner at the top of the leaderboards in Discord, and That is right. Thanks to Zephor, there's a point system and a leaderboard for contest winners. The more you win, the higher you climb in the leaderboard. And I believe Chant is at the very, very top. And she basically hasn't competed in a contest for the last couple years. She made an appearance just this year, won a shop contest, and has disappeared again. But big shout out to Champ, because her very first submission ever was Jurassic Expedition. And this one took second place in the beginner bracket. The next one is the Ice Queen from Sags, and this is Sags' very first ever submission, and she went on to be a dominant female in the contest community as well, competing in almost every single contest with Chant, and it was very entertaining to see all these amazing female creators coming out and just destroying the competition. We miss you, Sags. Come back to us, compete in some more contests, as well as you, Chant. All right, Skull Island from Floss. This might be one of the first ever submissions from Floss. I want to say that this contest alone brought out some of the best females out of the workshop, and they just came in and dominated this contest. I want to say this is one of the first submissions from Floss, and it quickly became one of the most epic pirate creations in the Planet Coaster history. Skull Island was absolutely memorable, for sure. Dragon Scale, created by XRBZ. This might be one of their only creations on the channel, and they came in and took second place in the highest bracket, and I think just might have left after that. But it was the most mind-blowing X-Dimension coaster ever showcased on the channel to date. I want to say even one of the only X-Dimension coasters we had ever seen. This might have been included in a Planet Coaster update as of recently in these videos. So we didn't see a whole lot of X-Dimension coasters. And the winner of the entire contest, taking the crown, was Into the Jungle by Combat Wombat, showing how it's done, winning the first ever major coaster contest with a legendary adventure exploration coaster, Into the Jungle. Looking at Rust Scraptown Legends, created by Tetsuo 303. One of, if not the first submission from Tetsuo 303, who went on to be an absolute legend in this community. At one point, I felt like I was featuring Tetsuo and Zephor once a week, to the point where I was thinking that they were the same person because they had the same build style with these compact, crazy, blueprint-only coasters. And Tetsuo 303, I want to give a big shout out to, because he was part of the early stages of the community, and he recently came back and submitted to, I think it was the Mini Park contest last year. And it was great to see you come back. And a lot of these names on this list, we'll see names that just kind of faded away, people that left. And it's great to see people that are still in the community or returning. So shout out to Tetsuo. This is the Tacos Through Time coaster experience created by Taco King. What do you even say? This was where Tacos Through Time was born, and Taco King made his name in the community. He went on to create Tacos Through Time 2 and even 3 to complete the whole trilogy. I'm not going to show the whole trilogy, but we're going to show the very first one, because it all started here in the early days with Tacos Through Time 1 at episode 190, and it almost went through the whole span up to 1,000 episodes, as he recently finished it, I want to say, this year. Looking at Hammond Fusion, created by Ben Hammond. Shout out to Ben Hammond. He had created a bunch of coasters on the channel so far that it didn't make it to this list. They were on the list, and then I had to remove them, and I figured he's going to get this feature here with Ham Fusion anyways. But he made Chivalry and a couple others that I really loved. And somehow Ben found a way to combine all his creations that he ever made into one giant coaster experience. I have no idea how he pulled that off. He obviously recreated the terrain and then imported the objects and blueprinted it all and pieced it together, and he made a giant puzzle piece of all his epic exploration coasters. And that is the first and only time it's ever been done. So shout out to Ben Hammond with that legendary creation.
We've made it to 200, and I'm joined with Tommy.
Hey, everybody.
And Floss.
Heyo.
And this is Thar, a pirate experience high-speed epic coaster created by Tommy T and Floss.
The milestone of 200, taking inspiration from contest winner Floss's Skull Island. Floss and Tommy T teamed up to make the next biggest, most legendary pirate coaster experience in Planet Coaster history with Thar, a pirate experience. And I believe I even had them on as guests for episode 200. It was a joy. And Floss and Tommy T went on to do a bunch of crazy cool projects together that may or may not have made this list.
Looking at Nightingale, created by Synchros.
The one and only Synchros, and his very first creation ever, Nightingale. And boy, oh boy, soon after, me and Synchros became good buddies, playing all sorts of games. Eventually, he became a moderator and even started helping out with some of the videos. I remember Nightingale, I remember his submission and him talking about how he's watched all the episodes and he's taken the feedback, and he came in and did it all right with starting with Nightingale and then following up with several creations throughout the history of the show until he eventually started doing some videos of his own. So big shout out to Synchros. I love you, buddy.
This is Portal 2, created by Brown Eyes.
So Portals 2, a mind-blowing experience showing a perfect recreation of the Portals tech, but in Planko. I could not believe how this was designed and how you could see other rooms through other portals. All the different dimensions and angles where he had to recreate multiple rooms, because if you see them through a portal, it has to make sense. And I thought at the time this was the craziest thing I had ever seen.
Today, I'm joined with Combat Wombat.
Hello.
And we're going to be looking at Planetfall Futuristic Battle Coaster.
So another Combat Wombat creation here, Planetfall. Not only did I have him as a guest on this one, but this is a very special one because it was the introduction video to an entire week of Combat Wombat videos that we called Wombat Week.
Oh my goodness. The Heist in the West, created by Ben Hammond and Wix.
Two all-star legends, Ben Hammond and Wix, teaming up in this incredible Western experience. Now, I gotta say, as I was going through the spotlights, I didn't see that many from Wix. I know he was big into blueprints. I know he submitted a couple coaster spotlights. And if I did miss anyone on this list, my apologies, because as I'm scrolling through YouTube, sometimes some of the videos don't show up on my end. And I've had that problem for a very long time. But I know Wix did this really epic swamp coaster, and I don't think that made it to the list. So I just want to give an extended shout out to Wix, as he has done some incredible coaster spotlights in the past. But at least the Heist between him and Ben Hammond made it to the list here, and it was absolutely sensational.
Mountain Rescue X Dimension Coaster, created by JR Tinman.
So this here creation is one from the storytelling contest, which was actually a mixture between rides and coasters, and it was not numbered as a coaster or ride spotlight. It was completely independent on its own. But this was my all-time favorite creation from the entire contest, so I'm including it here, and everybody's mind was blown. It was the first introduction to the legend JR Tinman, which he just came in, wrecked all the contests, got first place in everything he ever did, and then he disappeared. I gotta let this video run for a second and show you what this episode was all about.
Wow, look at the avalanche.
Yeah, very cool avalanche.
Whoa.
I told you so.
That's great.
Wow.
Wow, running from the avalanche is really awesome.
2. My eyes are watering. This is
That is
the best thing I've ever seen. Oh my god. This This is Riddler Week Day 5, and in today's episode, we're going to be looking at Adrenaline, created by Riddler Revenge 75. So,
Riddler Revenge 75 back at it again, and this is a very important episode because it's one of 7 amazing creations from Riddler that was featured in a marathon that we called Riddler Week.
wow. Looking at Ailstorm Quadruple Dueling Gnarler Coaster, created by Fubar.
This is the first time I ever saw quadruple synced coasters, and a gigantic wooden one at that. This must have been shortly after Frontier updated their game to add in dual synchronized coasters. Only took 300 episodes, but we got there, and now you can dual synchronize coasters in Planet Coaster without having to force the Mobius trick.
Today's episode, we're going to be looking at Infinity Engine, created by Combat Wombat.
Episode 300, another major milestone with the Infinity Engine from Combat Wombat. And we chose this legend to the community because of his monstrous, monumental, occasional reappearances throughout all 300 episodes. He must have been featured over a dozen times by now, especially because the 7-episode Wombat Week that we showed off of him between 200 and 300.
This is V4 Vendetta, the ride created by J.R. Tinman.
So I'm going to talk about one creation from the movie coaster contest, which was unnumbered. All the creations that we featured in that contest were still not included in the Coaster Spotlight episodes. Now, why am I showing V for Vendetta? Because it was technically a second place winner and not a first, but it's also a controversial creation is what makes it memorable to me. So this contest was a 4,000 piece limit, but J.R. Tinman found a way to wrap a single rail coaster round and round until it formed rooms, tunnels, and more, making this creation seem like it was an endless part count park file, when in fact it was only a blueprint. Some people thought it was cheating, others, like myself, thought it was innovative. The creation ended up placing second, and many people in the community thought he was robbed. At this time, this is when we still had 3 judges and doing the scoring system, and it was this very creation with the community outcries that made me start doubting my ways. That's when I started thinking about moving the judging to the public. I gotta say, judging these contests was always a nail biter, and eventually, because of a creation like this, and misjudging it as the community thought it deserved first, I'm glad I was able to learn from those mistakes to make the judging more fair in the future.
At Helium, a flying wooden coaster created by Crimsalt.
So, Helium, balloons holding up and suspending a coaster in the sky. What a cool creation, and Crimsalt's very first creation ever. Episode 323, pretty early on into the channel's lifespan. Crimsalt has got to be one of the most dedicated members, as he is part of the live stream Cozy Crew every single stream. Shout out to Crimsalt. Thank you so much for all your support, and I love hanging out with you, buddy.
Heyo, my Planet Coaster friends, Johnny5 Alive here, looking at Fajor Dwarven Quadruple Drop Coaster, created by Adrian Van S.
A memorable first-time entry from Adrian Van Sorgen, utilizing quadruple synced coasters that got punched out of the drop with fists and pushed around the amazing coaster layout. Adrian quickly became one of my new favorite creators with this creation. He even eventually sent me some clogs signed by Adrian, Pixelated, and Riddler Revenge 75, 3 of my all-time favorite creators for sure.
Looking at Jekyll and Hyde dueling coasters created by Floss.
A very unique dueling coaster experience from one of my favorite creators, Floss. This coaster almost mirrored a dueling coaster, but each experience being completely opposite. It quickly became a fan favorite and up there in my top viewed videos with almost 100,000 views. Wow, great job, Floss.
At Planet Extreme Skate Park Coaster and Climbing Wall, created by Adrian Van S.
You could almost call this the Adrian Van Sorgen week with the amount of back-to-back incredible features he had, most which I couldn't even fit on this list without it being unfair. But this skateboard ramp coaster in Planko had to make this list. No visibles tracks, pure vert skating, and it much reminded me of this creation that we saw from Zephor with Glacier Valley Twist. But now it's pure vert skating, and I'm a fan. I grew up as a skater kid, and this one really hit home for me.
Transistor the Ride contest submission sent in by one of our Discord new builders, Sublines.
So we're going to talk about the video game coaster contest 1, which was the first contest ever to enter the spotlight numbers, starting with Subline's Transistor Ride, and it was new builder Sublines, as you guys saw. And I want to say it's his very first submission, being he was new builder and all. And boy, oh boy, did I love this creation indeed. I've gone to talk about this very particular ride in many episodes and streams. This creation is one I can never forget. And I also think it took first place in that bracket back then.
And this here is the Mad Mining Corporation, created by Adrian Van S.
Episode 400, another massive milestone, featuring none other than the recent Adrian Van Sorgen, as he was featured so many times between 300 and 400, making a mark on the community until abruptly disappearing once again. This is the first coaster to be spotlit, utilizing the mine train coaster hanging in an inverted suspended state, and I absolutely loved it. I love seeing this feature used from the moment it was presented this day, and I always think back to this episode when I see somebody hanging a mine train coaster. And this one is also up there in my most viewed videos with almost 200,000 views.
Age of Empires 2 contest submission sent in by one of our Discord advanced builders, Verana.
Mrs. Furana. I want to say this is Fua's very first submission ever, and a contest at that. She mostly competed in the contest and never really submitted a spotlight, if I remember correctly. But starting at an advanced builder from obviously a loaded workshop, Verana then decided to compete in this contest and did very well with Age of Empires. I really loved how she recreated all the buildings, all the little pieces, and colored them towards their factions. And yeah, it was Age of Empires in Planko. Really fantastic job. One of my favorite creations from Verana to this date. And Fua has gone on to be one of our helpful moderators in this community and a good friend of mine. So shout out to Fua. Thank you for everything that you do. Keep on rocking.
Minecraft the Ride contest submission sent in by one of our Discord advanced builders, Afro Sheep.
The first and only time we've seen anyone build out an entire Minecraft world in Planet Coaster. A tedious task indeed, but it paid off, as over 80,000 people watched Afro Sheep's wonderful Minecraft creation.
World of Warcraft contest submission sent in by one of our Discord advanced builders, Tyrus Zeta.
This is one of my all-time favorite creations in the video game contest series. A battle between orcs and humans. One of my favorite games growing up, and still I revisit World of Warcraft to this day. A very nostalgic creation with impeccable details.
Dead Rising, the coaster contest submission sent in by one of our Discord expert builders, Deadeye Duck.
The unforgettable Deadeye Duck at it again with a perfect recreation of Dead Rising 1 video games mall, utilizing the zombie animatronics like never seen before. I believe this is Deadeye Duck's first time making the list, but he was a prominent creator from all the ride spotlights, the parks, and that sort of thing. And now he's known for all the Theme Maker Toolkit stuff that he contributes to the community. So big shout out to Deadeye Duck. Some of these creations out there wouldn't be the same without your TMTK assets.
Batman Arkham Asylum contest submission sent in by one of our Discord master builders, Mad.
Absolutely mad dark ride experience from the one and only Madman himself. Not to be mistaken with the Madman, it's just Mad. The Madman is a newer member to this community, but Mad is the old school OG. And this is the first time I've seen Planet Coaster in a really grim atmosphere that I didn't believe what I was seeing. This is one creation that I have to go back and use reshade for.
Luigi's Mansion contest submission sent in by one of our Discord legend builders, Chant.
Now, this one is an honorable mention, which is a little weird because it actually wasn't a coaster spotlight. In case you don't remember, we allowed track rides in this contest, many of them which I wanted to include, such as like a Donkey Kong, Mario Kart Racing. There were so many good track ride ones in this contest, but they were rides and they weren't a part of the Coaster Spotlight series. But the reason I'm giving the exception to Chant's creation here is because it won the entire contest, beating out all the other amazing coasters. Chant showing what can be done with magic and trickery in a pixelated style of her own and smashing the competition yet again.
Cosmic Cow's Crazy Cream Barm contest submission sent in by Lee Ark.
So now we're moving on to the Planko Mascot Coaster Contest, which just abruptly came right after, rolled from the video game contest into this one. And this time we were going with blueprints, 4,000 blueprints to see what you can do. And this was one of my favorite contests to date. And we're going to show off a handful of the ones from this contest. Starting with the Cosmic Cow's Crazy Creamery, and I just love Cosmic Cow themed stuff. And this creation was perfect in every way.
Okay, the Coffee Boiler contest submission sent in by one of our Discord master builders, Gushin28.
Next up is Gushins. First time making it in the list on this episode. As a master builder, this had me a little bit confused, as Gushin is such a memorable creator. Looking back at his workshop, this is in fact his first and last ever submission. Please come back to us, Gushin. But he actually was a dominant contender in the other shop, ride, and scenario contests over the years. It just took him this long to get to a coaster.
All right, Tiki Tiki Zoom Zoom contest submission sent in by one of our Discord master builders, Synchros.
And the last one I want to show from the Planko Mascot contest is Tiki Tiki Zoom Zoom. Bringing back the Mobius racing fad is Synchros, and with a bang. Just when I thought the fad was dying off, several hundred episodes later, Synchros comes forward with this incredible creation, and it brings it right back. Loved everything about this one, and it's one of the strongest Tiki Cheeky coasters on the channel today.
Coaster Spotlight episode 500. That is right, we are halfway to 1,000, everybody. Never thought we would make it this far when I first started doing this, but here we are, guys. Mass Effect 2 video game coaster dark ride created by one of our master builders, Miss Red Nebula.
500, another major milestone, the halfway mark technically of this video, but we're speeding up in numbers as we go along. And this was another dominant female creator in the community, Miss Red Nebula. I was wondering why she didn't make the list earlier, and looking back at her workshop, she too participated in mostly everything other than coasters. One of my favorites being Dr. Skitter's House of Critters Halloween contest entry and Gulpy's Playhouse shop contest submission. I really hope to see you make it back to the Planet Coaster, Miss Nebula, because we loved your creations, and a big tribute to you being episode 500. Well deserved indeed.
Looking at the Midas Touch created by Floss.
Along with many other Planet Coaster updates was one allowing you to trigger recolor objects. Floss jumped on this opportunity to create the Midas Touch, where everything you passed turned to gold. To this day, nothing like it has been created. We've seen very few people use this feature, yet alone base an entire ride around it. The Midas Touch. You could say it was one touching ride. Amazing work, Floss.
We're looking at Lost in Cambodia, created by Lawnman.
Another very talented lady in this community. Was quite surprised to see her place so late in the spotlights, as I remember a number of creations from her on the channel. I believe her earliest submission was the journey through Alcatraz, which somehow I missed getting on this list. She was also recently featured this year, which is something you're going to have to wait for on this list. Super happy to still see you creating remarkable exploration coaster adventures, Lawman.
Looking at Dishonored 2, The Ride, created by Brad Hamilton.
Wow, just wow. This might be my all-time favorite creation from Brad Hamilton. I also believe this is the first time he changed his official Discord name to be from B Hamilto 1X to Brad Hamilton. I love Dishonored game series, and this was depicted beautifully. I think this is another creation I need to go back for with reshade.
We're looking at Snow Crash, created by Schmitty the Pirate.
So this actually was the first ever bobsled coaster from yet another Planko update, which brought a whole bunch of new rides, including the bobsled. So shout out to Schmitty the Pirate for being the first to make it with the bobsled.
At Expedition Icarus, alien exploration coaster created by Combat Wombat.
Combat Wombat showing everyone what can be done with the recent No Limits painting features in Planko. It was an update that included the ability to customize your terrain palette, and this is where Expedition Icarus was born, with one of the most unique terrain landscapes seen to date, utilizing the custom paint palette.
Looking at Ghost Town Wasteland, created by Wormgar.
The one and only Wormgar, and the first time mentioned in this list. While I was going through the creations, I clicked this one thinking, oh, I loved that ride, to only discover, in fact, it was Wormgar's first ever submission, who is still a very active creator in the Planko community. Keep it up, Wormgar. Love you, buddy.
At Eternal Dawn, created by Zephor.
Yes, Eternal Dawn by Zephor. Was waiting for this one. Zephor has so many creations on this channel that I just couldn't fit them all in. But this one has got to be one of my all-time favorites from him, showing how to make a Giga Coaster from a 4K blueprint.
At The Matrix Reloaded ride experience, created by none other than Brad Hamilton.
The big milestone 600, featuring none other than Brad Hamilton for his years of amazing movie coaster ride experiences. And The Matrix Reloaded was loaded full of details that were just absolutely breathtaking.
At A Journey to the Core exploration coaster, created by, oh, I'm gonna butcher this one, La Allow. I can't do it.
So we're gonna start talking about some exploration coaster contest 2 submissions, starting with Leolo's first time on this list, and quickly became a very memorable creator to go on and dominate not only this contest, almost every contest after, until he was eventually crowned the Coaster King. And he did that in last year's mini park contest, which won't be shown here because it's a park spotlight. But Leole, absolute legend.
We're looking at Trek exploration coaster, created by Kitsch.
First time for Kitsch here, and this might have been my favorite creation of the entire exploration coaster contest series. Kitsch making a solid first impression to go on and create so many more legendary coasters. But I remember freaking out about Trek Biome Island, and this was quite a long episode because I just couldn't get enough of it.
We're looking at Arctic Island exploration coaster, created by Mina.
The last video before I left everyone hanging for 4 months in the middle of a contest, to then return with my journey back video and resume where we left off, but with a new improved channel, new thumbnails, new intros, new editing styles. But at the very least, I left you all with an awesome episode to re-watch in my absence, with Mina's Arctic Island Exploration, which is one of my all-time favorite winter-themed coasters ever.
We're looking at Skull Island 2, created by Deadeye Duck.
Returning back, making videos again after my break over 2 years, 500 episodes in between. Skull Island, it now makes a return with twice the coaster track, twice the details, and twice the awesomeness. Will we see a return for a trilogy 2 years later between Skull Island 2?
We're looking at Train Through Transylvania, created by FSF Ranger.
The last submission of the Exploration Coaster Contest to FSF Ranger, a legend in this community, yet his first time being listed in this video, and that is because he mainly focuses on dark rides for Ride Spotlight. In fact, he was one of the very first ever Ride Spotlights on the show. So an honorable mention here for sure, and this creation, I believe, won top 3 overall in the Exploration Contest.
Is Blueheim, created by Galcium BTH.
My true first spotlight back since the Journey Back video, and with including all my new and improved changes for the show. And same to be said for Galcium, as his long-awaited return after being trapped in Azeroth for a couple years. He came back with a vengeance and created the biggest coaster to be featured on the show to date. Which again, I want to mention, he eventually ended up beating that with the biggest coaster ever with an 8-mile drop. But that was featured in Park Spotlight just a few weeks ago.
Heyo everybody, it's Synchros here, and welcome back to another episode of Coaster Spotlight. In today's episode, we have 3 awesome adventure blueprints for you guys. So stay tuned and let's dive on in.
One of the first Coaster Spotlight bundles, which was a new addition / segment added to the show featuring 3 coasters per episode. And this is where Synchros jumped in doing the Spotlight videos on a weekly basis to help get more content out to you wonderful people. So this one is a shout out to Synchros, the bundles, Graf, Hugo, Erebus, and Jock for being featured in one of the first bundles. And this will likely be one of the only bundles included in this video since it's simply hard to track and organize all the coasters within the bundles. So an additional shout out to all the amazing creators who were featured in the coaster bundle episodes.
Heyo, my Planet Coaster friends, Xelixor here, and welcome back to another episode of Coaster Spotlight. In today's video, we're going to be checking out 3 different creations with 3 different themes. So stay tuned and let's check it out.
Okay, I lied. The very next shout out is a bundle. But this is also a special moment as it's Xelixor's very first ever video on the channel, and he still to this day helps out in creation of the content on the channel from time to time. Forgot to mention with these bundles, we did over 100 episodes of these over the next years with 3 coasters each. That's technically additional 300 plus coasters, and with the previous contests that weren't listed, we're technically well over 1,500 coasters spotlighted.
Heyo!
And Synchros!
Hi guys.
And welcome to episode 700! We made it! With The Mortuary, created by Darks. Another big milestone with 700, the legendary young man Darks. While it's his first shout out here, he is featured in many bundles, contests, and other segments of the show throughout the years. And a well-deserved spot on this special moment of episode 700 for featuring a unique 8K coaster combining 2 4K blueprints together. Is World of Warcraft Horde versus Alliance. All right, we're going to jump into and talk about some submissions, a lot of submissions actually, from the Dueling Coaster contest, which originally was Chant's idea. She wanted heroes versus villains, and we kept on allowing people said, well, what if I want 3 things? And it ended up changing into just a something versus something contest because people wanted more, and we didn't get our heroes and we didn't get our villains. So one day we should probably bring back this Dueling Coaster contest as heroes versus villains as originally intended by Chant, but only if we can get her back to participate. How's that sound? Anyways, our first creation here is Horde versus Alliance by Happy Camper, and it's Happy Camper's first submission, who has gone on to absolutely dominate in every contest since, including this one. Taking a page out of my old favorite Warcraft creation from Tyra Zeta in the video game contest, Happy Camper has found a way to make a new improved version with Horde versus Alliance. With Samurai versus Ninja, created by Zacko Slacko. Seems as if all my favorites of the Dueling Coaster contest are all new names to the community. The contest really brought in a lot of new legendary creators. Zacko is no slacko with this creation. It was almost a full-on mega park where the coasters battled one another through the entirety of it. Things with Prince of Persia Dahaka, created by SC Reconciled. One of the biggest moments in this channel's Coaster Spotlight history is in fact Prince of Persia. Not only another new name to the community with SC Reconcile, but also a beginner who ended up winning the best of overall in the contest, and he was the first ever crowned as the Coaster King, which was the best overall creator would be crowned the Coaster King until the next following contest. And shout out to Zephor for making this all possible and helping out with that. And every major contest since, we have been crowning a new Coaster King, and I think we have 4 of them total. But SC Reconcile was the very first with episode 757, Prince of Persia. Looking at Invaded Skylines, created by the Madman. Our first introduction to one of the craziest builders in the community, the Madman. Not to be mistaken with Mad. This Madman is a different man. And he delivers nothing but computer melting creations, and he does that every single time. And this was his first ever submission, and it started to melt my computer. To it with Lord of the Rings, Saruman versus Ents, created by Bugle. Our first big shout out to the one and only current Coaster King crown holder from the second installment of the movie coaster contest, Bugle. Close was he to earning the first ever crown in this one legendary creation. He was swept up by the one and only SC Reconciled, but Lord of the Rings coaster was one of the top in this contest, and one of my personal favorites. Is The Hidden World, created by Denise Babis. Yet another new incredible lady to this wonderful community with Denise Babis and her story of how to train your dragon. Previously featured for her incredible park, The Never-Ending Story, she decided to take her stab at the contest and ended up placing top 3 overall. This was one of my personal favorites and a creator that I'll never forget. The Dragon War, created by Kitsch. At this point, I feel like I'm showing off all the creations from the Dueling Coaster contest, and I'm biting my tongue not to show all of them. There are so many good ones I'm skipping, but by the end, I would have just listed over a dozen, which is really strange because not only 1 year ago, I was listing these in the top videos for that contest. But I have to include Kitsch's Dragon War because it was one of the top overall, and I believe it was one of the few that had quadruple dueling coasters. Looking at Hacker versus Programmer, created by Wormgar. This is the first creation that really had me rooting for Wormgar as a competitor. This was one of my personal top 3 favorites in the entire contest, as the concept of hacker and programmer is such a hard idea to conceptualize into visual art on a roller coaster, but somehow he pulled it off and placed top 3. With Rapture, a Bioshock experience created by Sublime, the last shout out of the Dueling Coaster contest, and a much deserved one. Sublimes for Bioshock. He created this world perfectly, and he is yet again one more creation I have to go revisit in Reshade because the creation had such a mesmerizing atmosphere. I just want to say that everyone in this contest deserved a shout out, but the list would have grown another 50 creations longer. Looking back at it now, I do believe the Dueling Coaster contest was one of my all-time favorite contests on the channel, even more so than the mini park contest, least for me because the mini parks were a lot of work and it mentally broke me by the end. This ends up being the biggest chunk of names in this entire list of 1,000 people because there were so many memorable creations from that contest. So I do think we need to go back and do another Dueling Coaster contest. Dwarven Mine Rally, created by none other than Zephor, the Big 800. If I'm not mistaken, Zephor was trying to create this for the Dueling Coaster contest, but instead ended up making this one of the most compact 4K blueprints, jam-packed full of coasters. The most compact coaster blueprint with the most amount of track inside ever created to date. Definitely worthy of an episode 800, especially because it runs on the theme of dueling coasters, and it's from the one and only Zephor. This man has done wonders for the community, and I want to give you one more thank you, Zephor. At Ready Player One, First to the Key, created by Happy Camper. Jumping over to the Action Coaster contest, I'm choosing only one, and that is Ready Player One, to show here in the video. It was the best overall. The contest was very recent, so I figured I would just show the one here. And in fact, since all the coasters coming up are from the most recent year, I think it's best to pick a very select few going forward. But Ready Player One was a perfect depiction of the racing event / game from the movie, and put Happy Camper further up my fanboy list with this creation. Keep up the incredible work, Happy Camper. Yar Har Har, created by Crimsalt. There's something so mesmerizing about this pile of junk containing such an epically long coaster inside. It's my all-time favorite piece of trash coaster, to say the least. Damn it, Crimmy. Lawnman, where dragons roam. The monumental 900 featuring Lady Lawnman returns with what I called Coaster of the Year. An epic journey across a gorgeous landscape filled with dragons and fantastic castles and vistas. Certainly another coaster that needs to be revisited in reshade, and my favorite creation from Lawnman to date. Keep up the amazing creations, Lawnman. So glad to see you still building. And as a note, I did look it up. It was episode 341, Alcatraz Tours, which was Lawnman's very first submission ever. So nice to see you throughout the journey of 600 plus spotlights.
Rock on like it's 2005. Enjoy this Guitar Hero inspired coaster with thrills from end to end. Hit all the notes as you zoom by rock, metal, fire and flames.
The best creation of the Video Game Coaster Contest 2, created by the Discord community. The entire contest was streamed live and was a bit of a side mini contest. So we did not crown a Coaster King here, unfortunately for Xenarix. However, he did make one of the most legendary coaster blueprints I have ever seen. So still, plenty to be proud of with Guitar Hero. This is Pokemon I Choose You, created by Cody Bits. Moving on to our latest contest, the Movie Coaster Contest 2 without restrictions. I'm only going to show two here. One, which is Cody Bits, who created one of my all-time favorite coaster experiences with this Pokemon ride. Truly one of the best coasters of the year and a Hall of Fame creation in the community. Absolutely outstanding work on this one, Cody Bits. I will forever remember this.
Wow, Blastoise's Hydro Pump and Venusaur's Silver Beam. Man, what power!
Who do I choose? I choose you, Cody Bits. Wow, freaking we, you guys. War of the Worlds, created by Bughul, the current Coaster King of the community for winning the best overall in the Movie Coaster Contest 2 is Bughul, an absolute legend of this community, a great moderator and a good friend, a well-deserved head for this crown to be kinged. And this was by far the best representation of a movie in Planet Coaster ever, and I have a very small doubts anything will ever top it. It was literally the entire movie. If you haven't seen the movie, just go watch this episode, because it's just better. So welcome to our first ever Coaster Bundle Live edition. Today we are looking at coasters from 2018. So quick shout out to the 5 people listed in this episode. For these people were the first ever Coaster Spotlight Live Edition creators in VOD format for the channel. Was nice to mix it up and add a bit of live content onto the coaster mix after 900 episodes. So it's a very special episode to me indeed. And I enjoy the live content a lot. Managing it and bringing it over to VODs is a little bit tricky, but I'm unable to stream Planet Coaster because it lags out and it kills the stream, so I have to get Zell in control. So I either need a stream PC or we have to get Zell to stream while I'm in control if we want to go forward with these in the future, especially now that I want to start using Reshade. So I hope to make a return with that stuff in 2022, as you guys seem to enjoy it. At Phoenix, created by Master Engineer 02. One of my favorite types of coaster spotlights is a nice middle ground between blueprint and park coaster. Not an exploration coaster, not a mini park, not a blueprint. A somewhat viably realistic coaster with some length, incredible theming, alongside a nice park entrance and decorative queue. We simply don't see enough like this, and Master Engineer 02 showing how it's done in this episode. Are you ready for the trilogy? We're gonna play A Matter of Time 1, 2, and 3 here on the stream. I cannot believe this, but as I was editing, something struck my mind and I realized somehow I missed A Matter of Time and might as well put it in on the third one, which was the trilogy completing the saga rather than the first one, as it is the most recent. And again, for some reason, YouTube doesn't display me all of the videos, and even when you're scanning through thousands of videos, it's easy to miss a thumbnail or not recognize one. So my apologies to anyone I missed, and I almost missed Moomin Little Socks, so I'm adding this in. So in theory, there's 101 in this video now. But yes, A Matter of Time, the time travel coaster with the best narration I have ever witnessed, with the best humor. It was just all around a warm, wholesome experience from the first to the second and the third, and it had great storyboarding, great heroes, great villains, amazing characters. I mean, what more can you say about this other than it's a masterpiece? The transitions between time travel eras was flawless. Some of the best storyboarding I have ever witnessed in Planet Coaster history, and Moomin Little Socks almost didn't make the cut because of my mistake, and now I'm scratching my head wondering who else I forgot. Oh, this is a tough video to make, you guys, but I did my best.
Never mind.
Okay, sir. Now say it.
Confetti, please, Jerry.
At Lico, the overload coaster created by Batch, the first ever spotlight using reshade on the channel. Only took me about 1,000 episodes to finally need to spice it up, and not only is this the first, but Batch is the one responsible for helping me get these settings just right. In fact, the true first episode of Reshade is the Rapunzel Kingdom Park, which you guys have not seen yet because it was pushed back in order to land Coaster Spotlight 100 on the 5th year anniversary of Planet Coaster. We set up Reshade for the Rapunzel Park, then I ended up seeing his coaster submission and decided to include that here as the first Reshade because his was also the first Reshade part. So shout out to Batch. Tina Burner, a drag race coaster created by Dan Thorpe. The final big showcase for this massive undertaking of an episode 1000 has a beautiful message from Dan Thorpe supporting the LGBT community with Tina Burner, a drag race coaster. I 1000% support the message and feel good vibes from this creation, and it was wonderful reading all the comments on this video. So many LGBT members in this community finally got a coaster to represent and support their message. It was really nice seeing how many people appreciated this, and it's a beautiful way to close out 1000 amazing Coaster Spotlight episodes from Dan Thorpe. Whew. I gotta say, guys, this video was the biggest project I have ever undertaken in my 5 years of doing Planet Coaster. And the craziest part about it is it's the 1000th Coaster Spotlight and exactly the 3000th video. 5-year anniversary doing YouTube, and it's the 5th anniversary of Planet Coaster. Guys, I'm Johnny5 Alive. This is Channel 5 Gaming. Thank you all so much for watching over the years. Thank you to all the supporters, the Patreon supporters over the years. You're all wonderful people, and I look forward to 5 years more on this platform. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye now.